There are many who would argue that actually what you did was unethical because you ran for an election and when you lost it, you decided that you were going to start a revolution.
The most ethical thing that any human being can do is to aspire towards liberation. And you cannot allow your oppressors to limit your liberation agenda by conforming with their rules and laws and regulations on how to conduct your struggle for total liberation.
Okay, so let me ask a quick question. Now that you are contesting again, is it because you are now convinced that the process has been sanitized and that you will get free and fair elections?
No, before a revolution happens, a number of or a series of events must happen. And part of our struggle is to get the system to give way so that our people can have a fresh lease of life. Yes, the system that is putting our people in bondage. And in most cases, because we are peaceful and also very...
So a revolution is not a violent revolution.
It has never been designed as a violent revolution. It is the oppressors that determine the nature and character of revolutions anyways.
So based on that experience of 4 years ago and where we are today, is your messaging changing? Is what you are offering to Nigerians different? How are you going to try and ensure that you have a different outcome this time around?
The messages have not changed because the objective conditions of Nigerian people haven't changed. As a matter of fact, things got worse.
That's what
after
I was about to say.
2019. The only difference in our message is the urgency of now, and that people should understand that this next election is a make or my election. And I know people hear that all the time, but I always said, and I'll repeat here, that Nigeria is living on borrowed times, and these elections, if they do not encompass the wishes, aspirations, and the desires of Nigerian people to see a different path in terms of governance, that revolution you are running away from is upon you.
Okay, and now I will get an opportunity to dive into what it is specifically you're offering Nigerians. We'll look at your manifesto.
Are you going to ask again after you knew that in 2019?
But I wanted an opportunity for you to perhaps get to know your running mate, because you've changed your running mate from the last person that...
I changed from a doctor to a lawyer.
Right, why?
Because there will be a lot of prosecutions.
So you're expecting him to help with the legal...
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Madam Mogeshi, lovely to meet you,
Thank you
for the first time. But I'm just wondering, what is it about this particular party that made you decide you wanted to pitch your tent with the party and also Mr. Sowore?
Yeah, I've been a lawyer for the past 17, 18 years, and all through I've been human rights activist, to the extent that I hold human rights cases for Mr. Femi Falana, the renowned human rights lawyer, most decorated human rights lawyer in Africa.
So I'm struggling to hear you, and I'm wondering whether that is the case with people in the room, and I just wanted to sort of call the attention of the technical people. I'm because there's no point having a conversation if people can't.
We would accuse you of
bias. I know.
Certainly.
So please, can we get someone to sort of sort out the volume issues we seem to be having? Maybe you could help me by raising your voice while they try to sort it out. I'm sorry I interrupted, but it's better you get heard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the most important thing.
Yes.
I'm saying since I became a lawyer, I've been running human rights campaigns. Actually, I'm an activist. I got to the extent that I hold cases for Mr. Femi Falana, the most decorated human rights lawyer in Africa, in the northern part of Nigeria, particularly Katsina, Kano, and other that axis. So this party, African Action Congress, has shown itself that it is an avenue that fight for the masses, that fight for the human rights of the masses, actually. So it runs along the line that I do.
Your convictions.
Yes, I'm convinced that joining the party and joining the politics will help and raise the standard of the activism I do. So I'm still in the legal activism, human rights activism, and a politician now.
Okay, and I was going to wait to ask you this question, but because it has sort of come up, I think I would dive straight into it before going into policy. He mentioned doing work with Mr. Femi Falana.
Yes.
Someone who we all, feel was your long-time supporter. Him, as well as one or two other people like Dele Fasoranti, who were sort of known to be your supporters, seem to have sort of shifted their allegiance to the Labour Party. Do you think this is going to have any bearing on your ability to win elections or the way you even run them, given that these are sort of big figures with big names?
Well, I've been in touch with Femi Falana up to yesterday, and I also heard him speak on a TV show last week, and he said he has not endorsed the Labour Party.
Right.
He's a lawyer to the Nigerian Labour Congress. That is not the same thing as being a lawyer to the Labour Party or supporting the candidate of the Labour Party. So you want to check your records. But with regards to Dele Farotimi,
Dele has come out to openly say that.
I actually never met Dele Farotimi until I came out of detention.
Right.
But we realized that he was at the Lagos State University and I was at Unilag when we were fighting for democracy. Which is right to decide who he would choose for election. He made it very clear, in all fairness to him, that his own position is not driven by ideology, that is driven by the need for fairness. He believes that a Southeasterner should be the president of Nigeria at this time.
Okay.
Yes.
And now that we sort of set the foundation for that, I'll ask one question and then we will open it up to the audience, because again, it's a town hall. It's not a Q&A between yourself and I. And my first question is to ask you, given the sort of economic issues Nigeria is facing at the moment, do you have any sort of underlying principle, philosophy, strategy that sort of forms the thrust of the policies you will pursue to solve our economic issues if we elect you as president?
Yes. And our policy, first and foremost, ideologically, we are on the socialist side of things. So we believe that the people of Nigeria should be the beneficiary of Nigeria's resources, not a few. And secondly, it is that we believe that an economic system that we have been running, especially since the 80s, which is driven by the Bretton Woods institutions, the World Bank and the IMF and their likes, is not the right way to go, because that's what ruined our industries. These are the economic policies that put us where we are today, and we want to change course and direction with regards to that. The reason is that I have the exposure. I know that there is no IMF policy in the United States of America where IMF offices are based. There must be a reason why they don't want them to be operating within the country. Just as you are not likely to find a VOA station and cable in the US, but Africans are all over the place listening to VOA because these are propaganda outlets for them to advance their own foreign policy intentions. So we will change course completely. And the other part is, of course, change of personnel. In coming to government, you are not going to have a Central Bank of Nigeria that's a glorified bureau de change.
And I think because we need to sort of dig deep into sort of the specifics of what you are doing, I will take a small break, allow others to join this conversation first, and then we can dive into the details if they don't come up in the course of answering questions from our audiences. So we start with the people in the hall. Anyone who has a question, could you please introduce yourself and then ask your question? And we start, the man in yellow. Yes, please.
All right. I greet my potential president and potential VP, Moses Adebayo. I know you to be a radical, Omoyele Sowore, or you are in my
Okay, I'm going to ask you to just hang on a minute. Could you do a favor for me? There's a bit of an echo, so drop the mic down.
All right.
And then speak, yes.
So I welcome you to my world, Mr. Sowore. You need me now. And you have to convince me why I shouldn't or should vote for you. Babangida and his policy, sir, practically destroyed the middle class. I'm a very poor product of the middle class. Not very rich, but not too poor. But what will you do radically, since that's your very nature, to bring about that bridge again? Because in our world today, Nigeria is just a case of extremes. The minimum wages, let me use that euphemism now for those downtrodden, and the maximum wages. How is back and Nigeria economy is restored? Thank you.
Thank you. So the middle class, we'll take maybe 2 more before we come back to the candidates, because it's just more efficient. Anybody else? Not yet? Okay. Maybe we dive into that question.
Yes, you know, the middle class already left because one of the things they did to Nigeria was to ruin the middle class. So we now have only two classes left. Those who are left behind, who have nowhere to go, can't figure out where to go, and those who own the country. And
where do you belong?
I belong.
Because if I look at sort of objectively,
Yes.
you don't fit into either, right?
I don't fit into any because, of course, we are special classes of people. Who is now, you know, we're everywhere except at the top,
Right.
because we're always with the masses. But the most important thing here is that Nigeria's main problem is that all of us deal with a pie, and the pie also has for two classes, you know, and the higher class, we do socialism for them, you know, we give them waivers, they earn maximum wage, they get special interest rates, they get even special exchange rates in this country. And for the lowest class, there's nothing for them. We pay them minimum wage. And you see in Nigeria, even when you talk their own economics, they calculate fiscal policy through the macroeconomic system they put in place. They talk about monetary policy, which is exchange rate, central bank, and then there's one policy in macroeconomics they never talk about, and that is the purchasing power parity, which is what exactly determines the well-being of the populace. And that is where the middle class actually stays.
So in specific terms,
What
how
it
would
means
you
is that-
improve on
Yes.
that? What
Yes.
would you do?
So what we do to improve upon that is first and foremost to restore things that will make the country start working, the energy sector, the manufacturing sector, you know, get the security situation under control through several means, you know, the physical intervention, then the economic intervention.
You need to
social
tell
security.
us in specific. We are now here for you to break it down.
I am giving you specifics now.
Okay.
You know, the specific you probably never hear from the other candidates you'll be
Okay.
speaking for with after today. It is for us to get back to work. I want to put electricity to start working in this country. And if we have 24/7 electricity, you will grow the GDP by, I think economists will be worried as to how to calculate that. If you do that, you will, of course, improve security as well. And you can bring manufacturing back, like my friend was saying about the social adjustment program that just prepared Nigeria to be a dumping ground for
I'm not interrupting for the
products.
sake of interrupting.
Yes.
I want us to take these things as you talk about them
Yes.
one by one. Let's start with electricity.
Yes,
Government tried to run our electricity,
yes.
decided that it didn't work, unbundled it, kept transmission, and privatized distribution and generation. People argue corruption within the system, the way the privatization was done. There's a whole lot of reasons why people think that didn't work.
Yes.
What will you do differently that would give Nigeria
You
power?
see, if the government hadn't privatized electricity, it would be difficult to make the argument that we need to renationalize our electrical grids. They are so important you can't give it to people who are buccaneers. What has happened to all our electricity?
So you will nationalize
Absolutely, we are taking it back.
distribution,
We are the ones
Generation.
we are the ones still funding the privatized. You were talking about generation. Generation is also largely privatized.
yes,
But
the only
what-
thing that isn't privatized is transmission.
Exactly. So what do you think happens? You sell to them, government built generating power stations. You sell to them at giveaway prices. You still have to give them waivers to import whatever they want to import. You still have to give them bank guarantees, government guarantees. You still have to get the CBN to give them grants to do what they, and yet you are in darkness. The government previous to this one spent $60 billion, you know, trying to fix the electrical system.
Okay,
They
so let me
can't.
understand.
The one next,
If you take it back
yes.
and you nationalize it,
Yeah.
how do you solve the problems that made privatization look attractive at the time that government decided they were going to privatize
Because
power?
government was just doing trial and error. That's why they were in charge of it at the point, and later they privatized it.
Are you
Sold it to their friends.
dismissing? Are you dismissing the lack of efficiencies, the tendency to
That's the
corruption?
reason- that's what I'm talking about. One of the things I said when we started this is we're changing personnel. I'm going to be president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, not the people who don't know what they are doing. And I'm going to be the chief hiring officers for the best human resources you can find on it, who are Nigerians, who will come back and make it happen here for us.
Okay.
So we have the people already who can make this country work. We keep making it sound like we don't have Nigerians who can make things work. But when you sell electricity generating plants to Nigerian big men with their big political connections, then they go and import Indians.
What I'm hearing is
Philippines. And you say, what is there? What is there that we cannot do? Why did we have a country that's 60?
Okay. What I'm hearing is a program of mass sackings. If you ever
nobody is sacking anybody. It was privatization that led to the unemployment you are talking about now.
Okay.
And all the companies owned by the Nigerian government working and not privatized, a lot of people will be employed today. Government would have employed more people in those factories.
Okay.
But the people who you are subsidizing, who you are giving grants, who you are giving waivers, how is it that they have not been able to provide more people getting employed? Or instead, they go and bring outsiders to come and run businesses that can be run in Nigeria. Somebody will go to the Niger Delta, bring a Filipino to come and be doing underwater welding. When there are people in the Niger Delta who sleep inside water.
Before we go to break, before we go for a break, I just wanted to share a little fact with you, and then we'll go on a break and we'll continue when we come back. In the history of Nigeria, electricity generation peaked for the first time to over 5,000 megawatts September this year. Did you know that?
It was rainy season. Why not?
No, but it had never happened before.
No, it happened.
So when you dismiss,
let's make it clear.
Even when
let's make it clear. It was not privatization that made it peak.
Okay.
It was that the rainy season was very
long. We've had rainy seasons for the last 16 years.
Let the rainy season be over and tell me you have capacity to generate 7,000 megawatts of electricity. You are transmitting 5,000 and you want me to celebrate that. What happened to the last 2,000?
No, I'm not asking you to celebrate. I'm just telling you the highest it has ever been.
Rainy season comes, electricity goes up. Our electricity is based on hydropower generation largely because we haven't been able to get gas to fire all the gas fired.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you to allow us to take a quick break. When we come back, we carry on delving a little bit further into what you intend to do with the economy and perhaps get to hear a little bit more from Malam Magashi. Don't go away, you are watching The Candidates. A Daria Media Town Hall series brought to you with the support of the MacArthur Foundation and in partnership with the Nigeria Television Authority, Cabal Entertainment, YouTube, where Niron is on standby to help us with engagement with the candidates. Hello, Niron.
Hello, Kadurea. How are you doing? I can see that it's really getting interesting in the studio there. Okay, let's
go straight to it. We can't hear Niron, so we can see him.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, we can't hear him here in the hall, so the candidates need to be able to hear him.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear that, Mr. Sowore?
No, very.
No, he can't hear, so, okay. All right, while they're sorting that problem out so that we don't waste time, are there questions in the studio in here? No? Okay. Oh, there's a question, okay. Please tell us your name and ask your question. Yes.
My name is Omoyele Sowore. I'm a broadcast journalist. My question to you is, give us 3 points, because even with the power question, for example, you haven't told us how. You've gone back and tell us the problem of even when it was in the public sector, when I was growing up, there was up NEPA. So even in the public time and when it was not privatized, we still have power issues. So tell me 3 points now, how you're going to solve the insecurity issue in Nigeria currently.
Specifics they're looking for.
Yeah. First, we must understand what is driving insecurity in Nigeria. It's because people have not had opportunity over these years. We haven't invested in our people. And we now have people who are completely cut out of the benefits of existence and citizenship in this country. And so to solve the security problem, first and foremost, people must think beyond just the idea of shooting at people who are terrorists or bandits. Understand that Nigeria's security problem have various dimensions to it. If you look at the map of Nigeria, look at the northeast, the reason is terrorism. The northwest has banditry. You go down, there's militancy. You go to the east, there's insurgency. And then there's general crime. But the biggest insecurity facing Nigeria are government officials who are fueling poverty and engaging in corruption, because that's how we got here in the first place. But for me to solve it first and foremost, and I'm sorry to say this on national TV, if it requires bringing in mercenaries into Nigeria just to end the kind of biting insecurity we have now, so that people can even have a chance to sleep and rest at night, I'll do it. That's number one.
Okay,
the second is to start rebuilding our military and security agencies. I'm sitting with 3 days ago, I was sitting with all the major security agencies in this country at the police headquarters in Abuja. And I tell you, one of the most pathetic things I heard from the table, but I'm not going to mention the name of the officer, they were whining over the fact that the U.S. was declaring that there's going to be attacks in Abuja, and it has to do with U.S. politics. And I'm looking at the man and say, why didn't you take action? You are the one who is supposed to tell the U.S. to be ready for evacuation because there's insecurity, but the U.S. is telling you, you kept quiet, and you are here complaining that the U.S. has reasons, extraordinary reasons why they told you that, because you all have failed. So personnel must also change, and we must ensure that...
You don't have confidence, is what you're saying, with the current people running
in
Nigerian
addition,
security.
and I want to say this, the Nigerian security armed forces do not have a commander-in-chief. That's number one position within our command structure for the security agencies.
So she asked for 3 things.
We don't have anyone.
Mercenaries, you said.
Yeah.
Rekitting and retooling the army.
Including remuneration, retraining, collection of intelligence, processing of intelligence. But finally, and I must make this clear, without putting a social security system in place, without wiping out or at least reducing inequality, without investing in education, you can't do anything about insecurity. China has more guns than Nigerians. What eventually solved the insecurity problem in China is social investment in their people.
So
empty apartments.
Have you calculated the cost of your specific actions? The cost of mercenaries, the cost of retooling, rekitting,
I have done that.
And how you would pay for it? What numbers
I have done that, and I've come to the conclusion that actually costs less to do what I need to do than what is costing us now for doing nothing.
For doing nothing.
Or doing the wrong thing.
Where will you find the money?
Wherever they are finding the money to do the nonsense they are doing now, stealing. You understand?
Okay. Before I go to the quick remote location, Madam Magashi, you are from the north, and of course we now have the northwest has become a basket case, just like the northeast, because of the kidnappings. We've seen the pastoralist clashes, etc., etc. As someone who's sort of living that life, surrounded by people who are facing insecurity, is there anything more that you would encourage your party to do, or you within your party you are discussing, in addition to what Mr. Sowore has said he will do?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
I have said this before. These insurgents, kidnappers, bandits, where have they come from? From the very society, from our community. They did not cross the border and settle in Nigeria and started shooting people anyhow and stealing people. So it is very important for a government to understand the nature of the society. What is the cause of this insurgency? What is the cause of this banditry? In recent days, we have seen 2 incidences. Let me mention them. One of the bandits, kingpins, was turbaned as a traditional ruler in Zamfara state. He came to the palace, he was turbaned, he offered interview to some specific journalists. Another incident is that recently the infamous Bello Turji, which is the most common name of bandits, he came to the town and attended a wedding fatah of a relative of his. After he left, there was an attack and he lost some relatives actually. So if these bandits, these terrorists have roots in our society, they communicate with our people, they interact with our people, I believe the government needs to come to the community, get to the root of these people and understand why are they into this and proper solutions to that.
Okay, let's quickly run to because I'm really keen that we get all 6 places to talk to the candidates that we have here. I don't want it to become an interview. Ibadan, we're coming to you. Nero, good evening. Can you hear us now? Yeah, Neron's mic, which is so, Ibadan was so crystal clear yesterday. What's happening to Ibadan? We can't hear him in here. Okay, let's go straight to Bayero University, Kano. Can Kano hear us? Today we seem to have big technical problems. I apologize for that. Okay, audience questions for Mr. Sowore? None? There's, yes.
Good evening, Mr. Sowore and Dr. Magashi.
Thank you.
My name's Nwafo Christiana Ifeanyi from the disabilities communities here in Lagos. My question is, sir, if you become the president of Nigeria come 2023, what are your programs, in terms of social protection for people with disabilities in this country, and your agendas for the inclusion of PWDs in your governance? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you for coming here today. And one thing I've hated so much about Nigeria is that people with disability, people we call special population, have always been used as a signboard for occasional intervention. But look at what you guys give to this country in terms of pride in the Olympics. You are the ones who have likely won the most gold in this country. But after we collect the gold from you and we do the paparazzi as usual, we abandon you. Let's start thinking about policy. I've never seen a government boss in this country that has a ramp for this, people with disability to get into the bus or get off. Not even a federal government building has a ramp that I know of for you. So part of our social security policy is to ensure that all of you are known and well documented and are given the support you need to survive in our society. What I mean is that not only do you deserve cash transfers on a regular basis, in fact, on a 2-weekly basis is what I would recommend, but you need to have opportunities to go to schools wherever you are. We, the people of Nigeria, any book you see that tells such a lie, brazen lie,
so the people who put it together were representative of Nigeria. No, from all indications, they were not military people.
They were military people. They were not. It was promulgated by a decree.
Yes, but it wasn't put together by soldiers.
It was put together by soldiers.
Together lawyers and people from across.
Obasanjo was going to be sworn in 1999. They don't have a copy available because they were still looking for printers.
Okay.
Another thing, yes. No, let me finish. No. That constitution, let me tell you this, and I'm going to ask you to do your research.
Yes.
That 1990 constitution was so bad that a portion of it was found to mention America in it because it was copied from, part of it was copied from the US Constitution.
That is not my understanding. I have never heard this. I don't know my understanding.
There are a lot of things you don't know that I know. That's why I'm running for president.
Okay. The things that are on the record officially about,
but this is true.
With all seriousness, the things that are on the record.
Serious. So what I'm saying is that if you want all these great things for restructuring to be put in that constitution,
Toby was the person charged. Is his committee that put together that constitution. My understanding of the way it worked is that they went around the country, took a lot of input from multiple stakeholders.
We're talking about 1999 constitution now.
Yes, came back and recommended. 79 was put together, but you are mixing up things. You are mixing up things. And you know what you are doing. So you know exactly what you are doing.
Nikki Toby was the chairman of the Constituent Assembly put up by Obasanjo, if I'm right. That was supposed to make a constitution.
And they came back and said
that's what
that the consensus was 79 with amendments.
No,
and that was what was passed and what we now use. Anyway,
you should have put fact checkers here. So
you want a new constitution, a brand new constitution.
Brand new, yes.
How are you going to achieve this?
The people of Nigeria deserve one. And it is their own wish that is paramount.
I'm asking about the how.
Yes.
People want a lot of things. The issue is the how.
All these other presidents of Nigeria have tried to create a constitution. The reason they didn't come into existence is because it did not satisfy their own personal interests. Obasanjo did it, but he wanted it for third term. When it didn't happen, they threw it out of the window. Jonathan did it. He wanted 7 years tenure instead of the usual 4 years. When it didn't work, 2004.
That's a claim.
Yes, they threw it out of the window. If it is the consensus of the people. If the people want a new constitution,
the people have representation in the National Assembly.
Yes, they do. Where I'm going is that the National Assembly have been amending the constitution. If they was working, we wouldn't be talking about constitutional amendments. But you see, even lawyers say it. I think it's a Latin word that you can't build something on nothing. The guy who is in charge of the amendment of the Nigerian Constitution in the National Assembly is the one they caught in London trying to sell kidney. So because he has
I'm sorry, you know, I don't have millions to settle libel. And
no,
seriously.
This is not libel.
You have to be really careful about
this. This is not libel.
No, seriously. I don't have.
The guy in charge of constitutional amendments in the National Assembly for the longest time is Senator Ekweremadu.
Okay, so if you are,
and it's also a fact that he's jailed in London because
he's not jailed. He's been tried.
He's sitting.
We need to be very careful.
In London.
He hasn't been found guilty. He's been charged.
We can use jail and detention interchangeably.
No. This is the law.
No, but it's true. But there is undergoing trial for
no. Charging somebody is different.
That's why I'm telling you that you are wasting your time trying to amend the constitution using the Nigerian National Assembly.
So let me focus on your vice president, who is also a lawyer, right? And I just want to try and find out that the reason I'm asking about how you intend to do this is that even if you do go ahead and win the elections like you're trying to do, you're contesting, it is possible. Given the, footsteps of AC across the country, it is very unlikely that you have a majority in the National Assembly. So unless you're saying to me you're going to be dictatorial, the question that I'm asking is valid about how you're going to convince members of the National Assembly who have tried to do just constitutional amendments without law because they couldn't get the unanimity they need in sort of state houses of assembly. So how are you going to convince this same set of people to change your constitution?
Okay. Do you want to hear from me or you want to hear from me?
I think I will hear from him, then we'll come back to you.
All right.
If that's okay.
The first step is to have constitutional conference where...
But we've had many before. So there's nothing original about the idea of a constitutional conference.
If you are setting a constitution, at least this 1999 constitution was not a product of any constitutional conference.
You can keep going back and forth. Okay, I'm listening.
Certainly. So you need a constitutional conference where every segment of Nigeria would be participating, would be represented. With that, if you have all what it takes and you come up with a document that is a real representation of the people, then that is when you present it to the assembly for ratification. Probably some few things may be checked and unchecked. Then the next process is having it gone round to the states assemblies. If you have all that, then the constitution would be adopted as a people's constitution.
I'm sure you can see I'm smiling. And the reason I'm smiling is that there are people listening to you and will say, clearly you've never been in government and you don't understand the difficulty of consensus. Because we've seen people try to do this again and again.
They throw things around because they've never, and I understand this about Nigerians. Right. You've never seen or had a set of leaders or any leader that make things work for you. So the standards are very low. So you've never seen anybody that made something work from nothing. I have done it before. I studied geography at the University of Lagos, graduated 6 years later, traveled to America, had a master's degree in public policy. I did not work for more than 2 years. I started a global website, never written before as a journalist. So when I'm telling you that I can make things happen in this country, I can make it happen. I'm one of the few young people in this country. When most of these presidential candidates that are going around now, when they were hiding under their bed and saying that the military leaders of our time should transmute into civilian leaders, following them, or that they should never leave power, we said we would deliver democracy into this country. I was 22 years old. I made it happen 10 years later, not by myself alone, but so there are people who have the mind, the courage, the composure to see into the future and know that a few people can change their world.
Okay, so can I say something? Yes. Can I say something?
So when people throw this blackmail at us,
no, it's not blackmail. The truth is that we know from experience that activism can be determined, driven by one person. But democracy, governance requires a collective effort.
You are never,
and this is really where I think many people say you fall short, because you seem to think you can do things by fear.
Many people were saying I fall short. In 2019, I was here in front of you in 2019. You guys were laughing at me. The person you elected in 2019 that you were happy about, look at where he put you now. No, true. Are you imagine?
Okay. I have to admit, checkmate. Let me go to remote location before Sowore kills me here. Kano is ready. Bayero University. Say a few things, please, so we know we can hear you. I can see them, but again, I don't know what is going on with the audio today. It's been problematic.
Can you hear me? We are live now.
We can hear you now. Great. Okay.
All right. Good evening and welcome to Bayero University, Kano. My name is Stephen Enoch. Well, from the conversation, it seems Sowore has a lot of plans for Nigerians, and students here are curious to ask so many questions. We have Amatola Idris and Hadiza Abubakar. So we'll just take Amatola first, and then we'll go to Hadiza. Amatu.
Good evening. My name is Amatola Idris from Bayero University, Faculty of Law. I have two questions, and my first question goes thus. Some candidates have planned to commercialize the educational sector, especially the tertiary institutions. What are your specific plans to ensure that education is accessible by all Nigerians, irrespective of social class or strata? And my second question is concerning the female students of tertiary institutions, regarding to inclusivity and affirmative action for women. What tools will you employ to ensure that women are actively involved in various sectors of the Nigerian economy? Thank you.
We have another question from Hadiza Abubakar.
Thank you. My name is Hadiza Yahya Abubakar from Mass Communication Department, Bayero University, Kano. So my own is, when Nigeria closed its borders in August 2019, people were optimistic. We were all hopeful that it might work. However, till date, even though proponents believe it's helped in curbing arms influx. Okay, wait. The previous administration, the outgoing administration, they say the aim of that was to protect farmers, reduce arms influx, or to curb arms influx, and at the same time boost our local production. But till date, we're still in hunger. In fact, the hunger is even increased, unlike before. There is more, the level of poverty is very, very high. And at the same time, there were reports that the farmers in the border communities, they became the victims of the border closure, which was supposed to protect them. They said security agencies there used to extort them. They extort them, saying their farm produce are no longer permitted. So they extort millions of naira from them. So what I want to know, dear candidates, what we want to know, dear candidates, is if you were elected, what would you do differently in this situation? How will you eradicate hunger? How will you do more good than harm if you were elected? Thank you.
Those are the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bayero University. These are extensive questions that I'm sure require detailed answers, and I have just a few minutes before the break. So I think what we will do is we will take the quick break, and then when we come back, dive straight into answering those questions. You are watching the candidates, and we are in conversation with the candidates of the AAC. Don't go away. Stay with us. You are watching The Candidates, brought to you with the support of the MacArthur Foundation, airing on Nigerian Television Authority and other partner channels like News Central, Zikoko, YouTube, Radio Nigeria, and Radio Now. Now, before the break, we had a few questions from Bayero University. And before I hand to you, we also have one online question. So I just want to tag it along so that you answer everything all at the same time. This one comes from Daltun Bade. And he says, climate change is one of the major issues Nigeria is facing. Recently, we've seen how flooding has ravished communities. And this is as a direct result, some of it, of climate change. How will you address this? So if we start with Bayero and then end with that.
All right. With regard to Bayero, I wanted to address the issue of border closure. I was in detention during the border closure hoopla, and I must tell you that the closure of the Nigerian border is the most hilarious thing I've ever seen. You cannot close what you don't have. Nigeria doesn't have border. I don't know why anybody will make such a policy. It's just like building a house, you put a massive gate in front of it, but the gate don't have walls. I know this because I used to pass through the border.
Is it that they have borders or the borders are just porous?
They are porous. They are porous. Even where there are official locations in the border, they are porous, of course, because of corruption. But most of Nigeria, boundaries are just outrightly porous. And I'm not going to say that I will build walls. No. But because part of the problem we have in Nigeria is that as long as our neighbors are poor, no matter how tall our walls are, we cannot drive them out. We should care about our West African brothers because I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm not going to be close. The reason the border was closed, as I laid out for that, is the most bigoted thing and also most discriminatory thing against certain businessmen. Because why they closed the border, by the way, I was getting intelligence within the DSS that some businessmen were offered opportunity to still be moving their goods and services across the border. But the poor people were being criminalized for going to buy rice. As she said, after all said and done, which policy did it protect? If you say you want to be doing rice, the price of rice go down. You understand? The production of rice does not go down. So why did you close the border in the first place? Waste of time. Then somebody also asked about education.
Education,
yes. And education for me is big deal because I wouldn't be sitting in front of you today were it not for a small, regional educational policy known as free education, propagated by the UPN and the Unity Party of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. When they brought the school to our village in 1980, it offered me the opportunity to start my education in a way that wouldn't have been possible because they used to take only 6 people out of our village to go to secondary school. The day that school was brought to our village, we built it ourselves, and over 150 kids came out of the bush to go to school that day. That's how some of us had.
So you will provide free education?
Free education. I will fund it. My own is access and quality for education because the education we don't invest in today is part of why we are dealing with insecurity and crime at the level. I'm not saying that.
Will you rethink the current education system?
Of course.
Or you are just going to take what we have and
everything
make it
has
free?
to change. The curriculum has to change. I studied geography and planning. Before I knew about the river in my village, I was already known about the 5 lakes in the US. Our curriculum is useless. It doesn't focus on getting people educated. It focuses on getting you literate so that you can work for somebody.
Right.
Yes, I want to put education in education and not just literacy. We need to be literate and educated a lot. And part of the reason why some of the questions we're asking that somebody says is not being up is our level of education. Otherwise, you can know that people who are determined, people who are desirous of freedom and change can change their country. Every country in the world has changed. Started with some few people who said, we're going to make it happen. You know that in 1787, you know it from history, that the US has some great men, they call them, some of them slave owners, Jews, that wrote the US Constitution. All of us know their names. You don't know the name of the people that wrote the Constitution in 1999 because they even ashamed to come outside and say that the one who wrote this nonsense.
We talked about
the military guys. So what I'm saying is that great people, great ideas, idealists, ideologues make great country.
And that's we are short of that. We are short of that.
The last one, the last question you asked, so
we need to get through the question because we still have representation. Yes.
Yes. We have been treating women in this country as signage, political parties in particular. Every time there's a rally, women arrive there first with the clothes. They are the ones who will shout and clap. When they are done, they are the ones who clap. But the truth is that women in current election role, that is the registration of voters, they are 51%.
Yes.
So practically, women can elect a woman as a president. Women should stop begging for percentages from people with whom, if you are 50% of voters, why are you accepting 35% of allocation for women? You know, go for 50% too. Our party,
but I now want to hear what you will do, not what women should do. What will you do if you become president? Yeah.
For me, there's no reason for women to give women allocation of 35%. Let's give them the percentage of their population of the country, or let them take it, because now they have more capacity to even elect leaders than anybody else. So,
but you know, you have to understand though, there are cultural. Let me finish now.
You are talking about culture as if you are not all here in the culture.
No, that's the point I'm making, is that there are things that make it difficult for women to take it, like you say. And in countries where these things have been taken seriously, representation has actually helped. So if you look at a place like Rwanda, making a conscious decision to put policy in place, to put laws in place, has increased.
Yes.
So when you say they should just take it, I'm saying that sometimes that's not a practical way to deal with this issue.
It is practical that if elections are legitimate, that is, if they are free, fair, and credible, that women in this country can elect a woman president. They are 51% of the population. They just need a few men, their husbands, boyfriends. They vote for a guy, and he wins the election. So if you have that kind of power, why would you be begging for?
Well, we are at a stage where, because of education, cultural situations, laws, everything. So what will you do if you become president of Nigerian women?
That I will not in any way. So let's start from governance.
Yes. You know, so your cabinet, what percentage?
Cabinet is going to be 51% representation.
Okay.
The number of women voters.
That's the commitment.
Compared to men. That's how we are going to do it. That's the statistics and calculation we are going to use.
Okay.
Do we have enough, because before we go, do we have enough women in our party represented? I said no, and I should apologize for that. But that's not the reason for us not to have a clear-cut policy that is just and fair towards women. And not be using culture as an excuse.
I'm rushing you because
our culture also don't allow men to steal. Why is it that they don't have a problem too?
Okay, climate change. There was a question there, and in light of this recent flooding,
a lot of people in this country, for instance, do not understand that one of our biggest crises right now, the herdsmen-farmers clash, started with the climate change issue in the Lake Chad region. The Lake Chad has now dried up to 10% of its size. So the herdsmen that used to have a great time around the Lake Chad area, disturbing number, they have to move southward. Reason, they are selling beef. Beef is a $4 billion industry in Nigeria, particularly in the southwest where we are today. Yoruba people, my people, there's nothing they don't eat when you bring a cow out and slaughter it. The nose, the ass, the legs, you know, everywhere. But the truth is that because we have not applied the policies necessary to regrow, say, the Lake Chad, we are suffering from that mistake because nobody understood it.
So how will you deal with it?
There's a policy we are put in place, you know, to re-energize the Lake Chad region. And part of it will surprise you. It's very expensive. It's to direct some of the waters from Lagdo Lake that is flooding Nigeria.
And where will you find the money?
Why are you always asking about where would we find the money?
Because you have to be able to fund things.
When we are funding thieves in this country, billions of dollars, they are stealing it. You are asking me where will I find the money when Nigeria has got money. The problem with Nigeria is not that we don't have money. It is that it's being shared by a few. If the little money we have is being used appropriately, your accountant general will not walk away with 150 billion, and that is not like that.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing with that, but if you do become president,
I will become president.
You will inherit almost from day one some of the issues left behind by these people that you're trying to replace, including empty coffers, at least in the first few days. How are you going to, you know, what are the sort of things that you're going to do to find the sort of immediate money that you need? If you go into government today and they say to you, look, we have only 1 month worth of, you know, reserves to import food, and you know we do a lot of importation of everything we literally consume. You know, we're not selling enough petrol because we're using the rest of it to service debt. These are international obligations that you can't wiggle out of, you know. How will you deal with that?
You see, when I come into power, I'll be coming in prepared. And I'm saying this authoritatively, that I've done my research about money. And in 2015, right?
Okay, we're going to have to take a quick break because your audio has.
This time I want to say something good.
I'm sorry, they can't hear you. I'm so sorry. They can't hear you.
All right.
I've just been told by the control room that your mic has gone bad. And so rather than wasting your time, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, you can start again from the beginning, I promise. Let's take a quick break. You're watching The Candidates, where we're in conversation with the candidates of the AAC, Mr. Sowore and Malam Magashi, who want to become president and vice president in 2023 and are asking Nigerians to elect them. I want to recap the question we were dealing with so that, for the sake of those who are just joining us. We were having a conversation, and I was trying to get a sense from you of where you would find the resources to do all the things you want to say. And you said Nigeria is a rich country. And the point I was trying to make is that if you were to go into government today, there are few things that will happen. You will inherit, for example, a budget that has already been signed. You'll be inheriting all the deficits. You'll be inheriting the debt and a whole bunch of, things that are a little bit messy. And so I think it's a valid question to ask you how you will navigate those things within sort of coming into office.
And I'm saying that in 2015, I was one of the persons that was almost single-handedly responsible for helping government to locate the use of the money that were meant for purchasing arms that would have been used to fight Boko Haram. And honestly, government did recover some of that money was distributed. I've done my own research, because I will have a transition team that will go to work as soon as the election, I'm declared winner of the election. And I have found over $6.4 billion owed by oil companies to the Nigerian government. When I talked about it, they said they have paid it down to 2.3 billion now, but that's still solid. The Revenue Mobilization Agency of Government, RMAFC, said there are government agencies, this is not unknown people now, who are refused to return revenues worth 11 trillion naira. Help me add that to 2.1 billion at the exchange rate of today. You see, my budget is already being balanced.
But you can't do all of that until they swear you in May.
No, the transition team can reach out to them and say, look, Mr. Sowore is coming in, please
You
pay
don't
up.
have to listen.
Well, if they don't listen...
Because you are not president.
No, they will listen because they know that I've legitimately been elected as president. I'll tell you, during when Buhari came in 2015, for the first time publicly, when he thought he had anything to offer,
What do you mean they? Didn't you campaign?
No, I'm talking, I didn't run it 2015, but I'm saying the NLNG dropped $4.5 billion Nigeria's dividend publicly for the first time. To the Nigerian Treasury. And I heard that's how the government started. Since then, they have not dropped any money that we know of publicly. When Sowore comes, I'm sure they will get that message very clearly. So you see that I'm balancing budget. We are not talking about, but because Nigeria's problem with debt is not the biggest problem. Our debt to GDP ratio is one of the lowest. Our problem is revenue to GDP. And we have already discovered where these revenues are leaking and how we can quickly put a lot of money together.
Would
that
you,
can help,
when you talk like that,
with regards to the budget, we'll review it. If it needs that, we send a new supplementary budget to the National Assembly, we will do that.
Okay. I want us to dive a little bit, but I think I understand University of Maiduguri might be ready. I'll come back to this budget conversation once we hear from University of Maiduguri. University of Maiduguri, you are ready or not?
Yes, we are ready.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah, this is Musa Usman from University of Maiduguri campus here, and the students are keenly following all the discussions that have been taking place between you and Sowore and his running mate. And we have two students who have some questions to ask. I'll start with Yusuf Tara, who has the first question. Yusuf.
Good evening. I want to use this opportunity to welcome the AAC presidential aspirant to this interactive session. My name is Said Yusuf Tara, and my question goes like this. Mr. Sowore, I am your follower on all your social media handles. I follow you on WhatsApp, Instagram, and what have you. In all your life, you have been an activist, fully participated in NSAS protest, a promoter of Revolution Now, and also in some occasions you support the agitation of Biafra. So my question is that, how will you ensure a secure Nigeria without creating social unrest and without violating human rights? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So the second question is from Sado. Sado, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Sado Banya from University of Maiduguri. The presidential aspirant has addressed the issue of tertiary education. I would like to know what plans he has for the millions of out-of-school children in Nigeria, practical solutions that will bring the menace to an end, and also about insecurity. Several administrations have come and gone with policies and programs, but it's sad that insecurity is on the rise. So I would like to know what new strategies will you implement to curb insecurity? Thank you.
And thank you very much, University of Maiduguri. There are a few questions people have sent via email and Twitter, so I will add them to these questions and then you take it from there. Ozu Emena says, do you believe the unity of Nigeria is negotiable? Valid question, given that from Maiduguri we've heard questions around Biafra. The same person also says the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics says about 133 million Nigerians are poor. How do you intend to lift more Nigerians out of poverty?
Yes, so the first question is the same as the first one you read out, which is the unity of Nigeria. And I think this is where people misconstrue the word unity, as some kind of unbreakable bond for Nigeria. I need to give a little bit of historical background to Nigeria, that Nigeria was not even put together by Nigerians. It was put together as a business by Lord Lugard. In fact, when Lugard was creating Nigeria, he had already created Port Harcourt. And the reason they created Port Harcourt was that they discovered coal in Enugu. So they needed to export the coal. And then Port Harcourt was created in 1912. Nigeria was created finally as one entity in 1914. So I am telling you that a country put together as a business did not become a nation. What are you killing yourself for? I believe that Nigeria can be united with justice. The Northerners are the most worried about the issue of unity. But if you look at the Northerners, they were actually the first to be reluctant for Nigerian independence because they felt like they were not ready.
I think you will find that actually that's an assumption. It hasn't been tested.
No, I'm saying it not to.
No, I'm just saying it's an assumption. Maybe you can ask
yes, I'm not demeaning. What I'm saying is that they put a lot of thought into joining a united Nigeria. That's why they delayed the independence for a few years. We would have had independence around 1950, but the Northerners were not, they were thinking about it, they were consulting. So that's the point. So that means that even at the onset, the people on that side of the divide had to be sure that they wanted to join Nigeria. So everybody that came to join Nigeria was forced into that unity. For us to now make the unity happen, we must create a perfect union. That's why I talk about the Constitution, because that's what happened to Americans after the Brits, they defeated the Brits. They wanted a perfect union, because at that time, there were blacks, women who were being oppressed.
So the right to self-determination for you is sacrosanct. I completely believe in the right. In fact, if we put it in our Constitution, the right to self-determination, Nigerian leaders will be more serious about governing Nigeria. So we should have some sort of mechanism that allows for a referendum. The reason I'm calling for is a fundamental right recognized by United Nations. The reason I'm calling for a new constitution. So that Nigerians can put in that constitution. And I know that the people in Maiduguri, Nigeria decide to challenge the unity of Nigeria through a referendum, not that it's just working. Violence, Okay, so I mean, I know that University of Maiduguri questions are waiting, but we've got Ijoma in Enugu. And I just want us to go to her, and then you can combine all the questions together. Can you hear us?
From Coal City.
Oh, it's Ifoma. Sorry, Ifoma. Hi.
Hi. Good evening from Coal City. I'm Ifoma Ajumobi, live at Coal City University in Enugu. And The engagements have been quite insightful. Thank you for the platform once again. The students have questions, plenty questions for the candidates, and we have Praise, Chisom, and Jonathan on standby with their questions. Jonathan, let's hear Jonathan's question.
My name is Jonathan Annie from Department of Microbiology. Sir, what do you intend to do about subsidy?
We'll hear from
subsidy.
Summa right now. Summa.
My name is Summa Obuke from the Department of International Relations. Mr. Sowore, it is not new to anybody that most public office holders have decided to send their children abroad to study. And for this reason, they are insensitive to the plight of an average Nigerian student caused by incessant strikes. Sir, as a former student union leader, how do you plan to put an end to these industrial actions, to these incessant industrial actions in public universities?
Praise has a question.
Oh, I thought Grace, we missed Grace. Oh, okay, all right. Praise.
There's a lot of religious and tribal agitations in our country today. Now, I want to know, most people actually feel maligned or slandered based on your belief. When you become president, or if you become president, what do you want to do about this?
Curtis is also on standby. Curtis, let's have your question quickly.
Okay. Final one from Enugu, and then we'll come back to the studio, please.
Curtis.
Hello, my name is Joshua Curtis DK Jr. So my question is to you, sir. We know of the SARS era, the things that they do. What will you do differently that the current government hasn't done? And then also, how do you include young minds like my humble self into the governance and also make us able to make decisions for others who are young like us? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a whole bunch of questions.
And I didn't hear some, but I heard that of it.
Okay, so we'll start with the ones you heard, and then I will.
We'll start out with the lady who was talking about what we'll do to end the incessant strikes, and the fact that the rich people are sending their children at the expense of those children of the poor abroad. See, this is something I know very well because I track this, and you're a journalist. We used to do this together. I track how much money is spent in sending children of the rich at the expense of the poor to school. We discovered that an average son of a politically connected or politically exposed person going to a school in the UK is spending over maybe £200,000 a year, the big schools. And if you break that down to Naira, it could almost build a building, a structure that has over 6 classrooms that is of the highest standard. They are stealing it from you. That is why I said, as part of our policy, that whereas we have no right to stop anybody from sending their children to school abroad, but they also have no right to steal our money to send their children to school abroad. And as a result, those monies that are retained, we will use it to give study grants to students that are going to school in Nigeria. In Denmark, Norway, students are paid to stay in school to the point that sometimes when they are supposed to spend 4 years in school, they spend 6.
What's the population of Denmark?
No. Let's stop talking about the population. The population of Nigeria is big. The problem is the population of the thieves, which is not big, but they are taking the biggest of our resources. So we want to stop that. Let everybody who can afford to send their children to school, send their children to school. Is your problem. But don't steal government funds to send your children to school and then prevent students who are supposed to have access to their own national resources.
Please take note of
them stay at home.
my follow-up question. And the reason I will ask it now is,
and I wanted to answer
I don't want to interrupt.
Let him join our party. This is a youth party. No more ancestors in government when we win.
No more ancestors. Yeah, there are a few more questions I need you to deal with, and when you are done with them, perhaps come back and talk about how you deal with corruption, since you were talking about how to do with the money. Okay, so somebody asked what your, whether you remove subsidy.
Oh, subsidy.
Yes.
I think we should stop calling it subsidy. Okay. That's maybe will make it easier. That particular name has been demonized. The subsidy they say we have in Nigeria is a subsidy of the oligarchs, the people who are importing petrol alone. When you take crude out of Nigeria, crude after they say has a capacity to get a lot of products, including your hair shampoo. We take our own crude out, we go with a whole crude. When we are coming back with just gallons of petrol, kerosene, jet A1, and that's all. And we see petrol at nose. Our solution is to repair our refineries. And before you shout, oh, Sowore has come again, you are helping one man in Lagos to
but
finish
this government has already said that subsidy is going out in June, so presumably you don't disagree.
I'm not taking, what I'm saying is that whatever the poor people of this country can enjoy from government, the only thing they enjoy, we'll keep it. But we will not allow the oligarchs to add their own bill on top of it. Let me tell you, kerosene is not subsidized. Yes. How is it that it's not giving us any palliative? Diesel is not subsidized. Why is it that we are not getting anything in return for unsubsidized diesel? So they just criminalize and demonize subsidy as if you can't support your citizens.
So
I'm not from Nigeria. Let me just put this in. I'm not a U.S. citizen, guys. Hear this out. While COVID was going on, the U.S. government sent me 3 checks. I was in detention. They were sending me money. I'm not even their citizen. Is that not subsidizing your citizenry? Our own leaders, they were hiding palliatives. No, it's true. From the people, until the people went and liberated the palliatives in Jos. Did you not hear that? So we cannot keep saying that government does not subsidize. Government subsidizes everywhere. In fact, the most subsidized people in Nigeria are the elite, the oligarchs.
The problem is, I'm not too sure that anybody here doesn't know what the problems are.
I'm saying I'm not.
So talking about what has happened.
Subsidy, but don't call it subsidy so that they make it look bad.
Okay, so
we must support our citizens who are vulnerable. There are 130 million Nigerians who have been thrown into the poverty market. How do you just treat them as if they are nobody?
Is your practical plan? Because I have to assume
you talked about repairing refineries. You have 4 refineries.
How are you
in Nigeria?
You will carry on subsidy until refineries have been sorted.
And when you fix refineries, you will have more than enough.
How do you ensure that the subsidy, like you said, is not stolen, and you only pay for the subsidy that goes directly to the people? I'm asking for practical plans.
Was I not the one who outed all the subsidy thieves on Sahara Reporters in 2004? Did you forget? I know them individually. By the time I come to government, they know that they're out of business. Because I know them. I know all the people who are in charge of stealing subsidy money in Nigeria. I'm not saying this to brag. I know them, they know me. I know what each one of them is stealing. I know people who were importing water into Nigeria under Jonathan, who called it petrol.
Okay.
Did it not happen?
Okay.
That they were prosecuted, they were arrested, but they were never prosecuted till today.
Let me bring in Malam, because another issue that Nigeria seems to have is the cost of governance.
Yes.
You know, a lot of money and resources going to maintain essentially a tiny minority of people. I mean, people would argue a government is essential, civil servants are essential, but perhaps we're not efficient in the way we sort of run our government, etc. What are your thoughts regarding the problem with the sort of cost of governance, and what is your party thinking of doing about that particular problem?
As you said, everybody knows the problem. Cost of governance is high in Nigeria, and it needs to stop. How do we stop it? Nigeria has 3 arms of government. You have the legislature, executive, and the judiciary. Take a look at every arm. What are its functions? What are its divisions? What are its roles? Those under it. And what does it consume? There is agitation that people are calling for scrapping of the Senate for the reason that they consume a lot of resources, and the people think that the country can go on without the Senate.
So I like that you brought it up, because The question is, how do you convince a group of people to commit suicide? Because for you to actually go from having 2 chambers, National Assembly, in the National Assembly, the Senate has to vote to accept to be scrapped. So what is the strategy for convincing them essentially to get rid of themselves?
Convincing the people that brought them to the Senate. They didn't work on their own.
It sounds great, and you get claps for it, but you still haven't told me how. So you convince people, so I'm in Kano and I'm convinced I don't want a Senate, then what? At the moment, what are you going to use? What provisions? How are you can't do it with, unless they pass a law saying they can be scrapped.
Yes, in the first place,
yes.
I am not saying we would scrap the Senate.
That's what I heard.
I think people are agitating for scrapping of the Senate.
Okay, you start working towards it.
Yes, we can't scrap the Senate on our own. We have to convince the people to say, look, we don't need the Senate. In fact, beyond just the Senate, which is the equivalent of all these former governors, it's even the the lower House of Representatives. I think we should make it part-time. That's my position. So that anybody coming there should have another job. Already, they are operating as a part-time lawmaking body. I think the Senate, according to Premium Times, didn't sit for the allocated amount of times that ought to make them a full-time Senate. So they are already practicing part-time work. Let us pay them part-time salary as well. Okay. I would have preferred if someone like Saraki was practicing as a doctor and as a legislator.
I'm wondering why you focused.
Let me ask
you this question. I'm wondering why you focused on the Senate and not the House of Reps. And I'll tell you why. The Senate, unlike the House of Reps, ensures equal representation for every state. So every state has 3 senators, yes. Not 4, not 5, So everybody in the Senate, in terms of representation, is equal. Whereas House of Reps, there are variations which many people find unfair, because they're driven by landmass, by population, by that sort of thing. So Kano State, might have more legislators than, say, Zamfara State.
So then let's grab the House of Representatives then.
Right.
Yes,
so because I was trying to understand why you chose Senate and not House of.
We came to that conclusion because most of the people in the Senate don't even have any reason to be there. And our goal is to reduce the cost of government. And I also add, apart from cutting the legislative arm into size, because South Korea doesn't have a Senate and they are doing well. Senegal doesn't have a Senate and they are doing well. We also want to reduce a lot of baggages in federal ministries, departments and agencies. For instance, I don't know any reason why Nigeria should have a minister and a minister of state. They are doing essentially the same job. Get rid of the minister of state, keep the minister. A lot of organizations have replicated duties. We wipe them out again, and reduce, and this will have impact, because we are looking about a compact government. We are not going to deny it. I agree with you. I agree with you completely that the cost of governance is too much, and it's very top heavy, and it includes the presidency. And I don't want to repeat it here that they have a fleet of jets that Buhari said he wanted to reduce. He just kept increasing it. So what we are saying is that the cost of governance is too much. I even worry why any Nigeria president needs an Aso Rock, which can be converted to a children's hospital. The president doesn't have a family that's huge enough to be living in that zoo, as they call Aso Rock, that is fenced in 3 places. Whereas if you go to the White House of the US, it doesn't have that many bedrooms. If you go to number 10 Downing Street, I don't know how many bedrooms are there, but there are not as many as number 7, one building in Aso Rock. So I'm just using that as an analogy on how much we spend wasting our money.
So presumably when you get in there to determine what should go and come, there would be some sort of process.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying that the constitution needs to change. For instance, if you don't change the constitution, we can't scrap. You look at the beautiful argument you presented now about the House of Rep. You have just put them in trouble. Now we are going to be taking
No. I wasn't presenting it to make an argument. I was just trying to understand the business, because the House of, let me tell you the advantage that they have that the Senate doesn't have, is that they are also where you find minorities that are never represented anywhere. So
well,
communities,
all of the arms have to go.
Right?
That's
okay.
in our view.
We are running fast out of time, so let me take a quick break so that when we come back, we take a few more remote locations and we try and wrap up this conversation. You are watching The Candidates. The candidates of the AAC, Mr. Omoyele Sowore and Malam Magashi. Don't go away, candidates. And we're going straight to the University of Abuja, where Ruth is on standby. And please note, we can only take 2 questions, and if you can keep them tight, we really would appreciate it because we're running fast out of time.
At the University of Abuja, I must say it's been an interesting conversation there with the AAC candidates. The students are excited to ask some questions, and like you said, we'll take just 2. So I'm starting with Kuram Sokoja. Kuram?
Hello, good evening. I'm Kuram Sokoga from Economics Department. My question is, in view of the present state of economic recession, inflation, the degradation of the Naira, and balance of trade deficit, what are the steps you want to take as incoming president to solve all these alarming issues that has brought about economic breakdown? Secondly, in consideration that we practice the Keynesian economic system, as to the fact that governments play a key role in controlling the forces of demand and supply and market participation, what are the steps you have to put in place to improve government's functionality in major sectors of the economy, such as production industry sector? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's quite a handful. Raphael is next. Raphael.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Echobu Raphael Ikwebe. My question is, if and when you are elected as president, what are the steps you are going to take to raise Nigerians' confidence in government, as an average Nigerian has lost total confidence in government and governance and their ability to ensure and provide basic responsibilities, perform their basic responsibilities of theirs, and which include not limited to social amenities, security of life and properties, and all that, etc.
Thank you very much, University of Abuja. And because we have 2 other universities, so we don't get confused, if you dive straight into those answers, keep them short, and then we take the other universities.
The first question is, the amount of intervention governments can get.
So the economy keeps coming up again and again.
And government has a duty to manage the macroeconomic policy of the country. And when we say this, we also have a duty to ensure that our monetary policy is tight. I mentioned it when we started that Nigeria's central bank is just a glorified, bureau de change right now. We will change that when we come in to ensure that we have a central bank team, not just a governor, who understands what the monetary kind of policy we need to stabilize the Naira in particular.
But it does need to be independent, so you won't interfere.
Independence, that's what I'm saying. The government has a role to play in taxation. It has a role to play in generating revenue. The central bank is the bank to the government. Yes, that's what the central bank is practically about. This independence we are talking about.
To drive monetary policy.
They are supposed to drive
based
monetary policy.
On the sort of what is supposed to be
they're supposed to be in charge of rates, and the things that can help your currency be solid and have purchasing power and have its ability to, they also control our foreign exchange processes and foreign reserves. But government cannot just say, well, the central bank is independent to the point that
the criticism of this central bank and the reasons that many believe they got it wrong is that actually they were too close to government.
It's true. That's what I'm saying is BDC now. If you know the central bank governor, you can just get $1 in the morning.
Again, I can't be sued though. So I'll come to you.
Why are you talking to a fellow journalist like yourself?
Let's carry on. So answering that question on the economy.
So what I mentioned earlier, that in all of this, one calculation that people don't make when it comes to Nigeria, they eliminate completely or refuse to discuss standard of living. All of this, fiscal policy, monetary policy, all kinds of policies are supposed to make life better for the citizens. And that is where the conversation about purchasing power parity comes in. What is it that if I want to buy this shirt in the US is a cost? and what will it cost me in terms of naira to buy in the country. If I'm not producing it, it doesn't matter whether I like it or not. It costs me more because my currency is weak.
Okay, so and there was a question sort of related to that, which was about productivity.
Yes,
at the moment,
but you can't get into product. You can't have a production argument in Nigeria without fixing the power sector, the energy sector. And that is why I keep discussing how to bring lights and discuss about energy and energy transition, and to look at a variety of energy sources and how we can be a real participant in international market for these products.
Can you take the question on confidence and how you can rebuild confidence in governance and government, given where we are today?
To be brief, what do the people want from the government? If they get what they want or what they desire or what they expect, they have confidence. They need peace, security. The provisions of Chapter 2 of the Nigerian Constitution are provided to the citizens. If the citizens have a food to eat, have a shelter, have an education, they won't need anything, and they would respect the government that supplies that.
So it's a question of basically if the government keeps its side of the bargain, the contract between citizens and the
social contract.
I have to go now quickly to the University of Ibadan, and Nero is joining us. Hello, Nero. Good evening.
Good evening, Kadoya. I hope you can hear us now.
Yes, at last. Happy to see your face and to hear your voice.
We didn't go all evening. Anyways, a very interesting conversation there, and I'm going to go straight to the point. We have two questions from the University of Ibadan right here. And I have, first up, Odion. Odion, step up for the question.
Good evening. My name is Odion Sani-Ebiaye. I'm an electrical engineering student from the University of Ibadan. First of all, some might argue that the last time Nigeria was this divided was before the civil war. I mean, that's in the religious and the ethnic sense. Now, you said something about those who want to break out of Nigeria can seek legal means. But how did you, Sowore, want to promote unity in Nigeria? That's the first question. And the second question is, in recent times, we've seen a lot of thousands of Nigerian healthcare workers travel out of the country for greener pastures. And reports even show that the ratio of doctors to patients in Nigeria is 1 to 9,000. So how do you plan to combat this problem? So do you want to carry out healthcare reform, and how do you want to go about that? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and the second question is coming from Olajuwon. Olajuwon.
That will be the third question.
First and foremost, I would like to state that talk is cheap. Most of the answers to the questions have not been quite specific. So I will implore you to be very specific in my questions to you now. For instance, you were asked how you were going to stop stealing of subsidy, but you didn't quite give an answer. You just said they will know they're out of business once you are in. How exactly do you plan to get them out of business, knowing fully where the corruption fights back? And again, I will move quickly to education. I would like to know how exactly you want to prevent the recurrence of ASU strike in very specific time. And if you become the president of Nigeria, Mr. Sowore, what will be your stance on no work, no pay, as the federal government of Nigeria is stating now? Because it is very clearly stated in the Constitution, in the Trade Dispute Act, that government might decide not to pay workers who do not work. And again, very quickly, Mr. Sowore, on climate change, President Muhammadu Buhari has said that he's calling for more urgent investment for facilities in Africa. What exactly is your stance on climate change? And last but not the least,
that's a lot of questions.
Last but not the least, what exactly is the economic policy? What is your monetary policy? What exactly is your fiscal policy? Please, very.
Nero, I'm afraid. Thank you very much for that. With less than 15 minutes to go, can I urge you to be really short with your answers, and I can prompt you one by one again if you want.
Maybe you can prompt me, yeah.
Yes, how would you promote unity? You've said you believe in the right to self-determination, but if you are president, how will you promote unity?
Well, if you give justice to all the sectors, nobody will want out of Nigeria. You see, people who talk a lot about Biafra, they also forget that the Yorubas also have their own agitators. But there are people in the Middle East, there are middle belts who also want out of Nigeria.
Yeah.
But what people have never talked about is that a lot of Nigerians have actually mentally seceded from Nigeria. How do you calculate? The Japa syndrome? It's because of people have seceded.
Okay, so
the only people who are trapped.
Healthcare.
Yes.
This straight into the next question.
So, what's your next question then?
Healthcare.
Healthcare.
With doctors leaving and all of that, what's your plan for solving healthcare?
What we need to do specifically is to invest in healthcare. And I have said it, we need to have a healthcare system that accommodates all. And it is not socialism, it's the right thing to do, it's compulsory. It's investment. You have to invest a sizable amount of your budget or revenue in ensuring that hospitals are working, drugs are available,
what sort of system?
You have an insurance, our is the insurance policy, but it's not the one that's going to be exploited or stolen by, through fake HMOs.
Okay, so at the moment there's a new healthcare act that the president has, brought into law, which makes it completely compulsory for every person who, employs more than anything from 5 up to provide health care for their person. And if you're an artisan, you're also by law supposed to go and sign on to some sort of HMO. What will you do differently from what already exists?
I think it should be the duty of government, our government, to provide health care for all.
Okay.
And not leave health care to employers who the burden of healthcare provision might force them to either be forging.
So you would be finding
we
the
still
money.
have a contributory system to it for employers, of course, but it won't be such that you ask employers to take over the entire healthcare of their workers. What about when the employers then fall out of business? Who takes care of the employees?
The person from Ibadan that said talk is cheap is not satisfied about the specificity of your answers. He said, for example, how are you going to stop them from stealing? Especially since we know corruption fights back traditionally. He's also asked you to discuss the ASU issues and whether you respect this idea of people don't get paid unless they
I don't respect the people. When the strike is just, you have to pay the strikers. It's not, they didn't even want to do this. It was government that forced them to. If you want to start stopping the pay of people who are not working, I think the president will be number one because he barely work. It is true. Yes. So, and the truth is that these are things that escalate the problems. You can't keep escalating the problem by engaging in things that make our higher institutions are too important to be played with technical parts of laws. Let's put the money they ask for. They are specific about how much they want. Let's find the money and give it to them and make sure.
But their demands go beyond money. There are 7 demands that ASU is making of the
and the demands have been the same since the 90s. When Jega was president of ASU.
You wouldn't rethink education at all, like some people are saying, create a situation where universities become independent, they are able to get endowments, and
education is too important.
Because
let me
in other places where education works, education is not as cheap as it is in Nigeria. So people actually, if you look at how much we pay to train doctors,
it's not also as expensive as they think. In the 90s, the IMF and the World Bank came to this country and said, don't invest in education. It's too expensive. It's waste. Let people pay for the education. But the same people came back and recruited 8,000 doctors from the education they didn't want us to invest in 1990. So this is hypocrisy.
Victor
you cannot compare education to anything.
Bielsa, and I don't really want to waste their time because they're the last school we're going to, but you still haven't talked about, the thieves, yes, who are stealing the subsidy, yes, but talk is cheap. How do you intend to fight them?
I don't belong to the category of talkers. If a student, he should go and do research about me at the University of Lagos. I'm not a talk is cheap person.
Okay, let's go to Victor, who is who's in Bielsa, and join our last remote site because they've been very patient. They've been listening.
Thank you, very detailed conversation there in the studio, and to start a lot of comments here at Bielsa Center. We have 2 questions that will be asked. I'll call on Honorable Elliot Sowore to ask the first question, then we'll move to Honorable Omoyele. Yeah, good evening. I am honorable for us to spend our summer in the former legislature. Kindly answer this question. Without a equivocation, the bulk of the wealth of our country comes from the crude oil in the Niger Delta region.
And for donkey years, the entire environment, I mean the ecosystem, has been abysmally polluted, destabilized, defaced, disintegrated, and bastardized. And our people impoverished with the oil blocks predominantly in the hands of people outside the region. Should you become the next president, how would you redress this repugnant imbalance? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take one more question quickly, please.
Okay, good evening. My name is Amawi Okemetrona, public servant. First and foremost, I want to congratulate the candidate for putting himself forward. It's not easy. I think that the right time has come for good people to equally put themselves forward. Briefly, my question: if you become the president, what will you do with the presidential mercy program? But recently, the news is everywhere that this government have decided to run down the presidential mercy program under 6 months without the government keeping inside of the bargain. And this is causing a lot of problems in the Niger Delta. So what will you do with the presidential mercy program? Thank you.
Thank you. Victor, if I could ask you, Victor, can I ask you to quickly recap that second question, because it wasn't very audible. We could barely hear him.
Okay, the second question, by allowing, says that the amnesty program by the federal government, there are news that it will be stopped very soon without any proper plan. If Mr. Sowore becomes the president of Nigeria, what are his plans on the issue of the amnesty program?
Okay, so thank you very much, Victor. Two quick questions. The Niger Delta produces the bulk of the wealth. They pay, the highest price, no development. What are your plans on redressing that imbalance? And on the issue of the amnesty program?
I'll start with the amnesty program. I think it's become a cesspool of corruption. But I like the program, and I'll develop into a concrete.
So like the principle of
yes,
it? And what
I like the
stands
principle of it because I brought peace to the Niger Delta. But that peace cannot last on the basis of this ad hoc-ish intervention in Niger Delta. The amount of money you are giving to amnesty can be used to build universities that will train lots of Niger Deltans. Locally. And you could have finished the roads, the East-West Highway that has now been washed away. A lot of development could have come from that. What I would agitate for is for the Niger Delta region to get a larger portion of the oil resources. So to that extent, you can say that I'm biased on the side of resource control. But anybody that is listening to me today should know that the word resource is dynamic. So if one day the northern part of Nigeria is producing solar energy, electricity for the rest of the country, don't come and tell me that they don't have a right to also get a part of that resource.
What I seem to be hearing you saying is that you're not quite 100% how to deal with this issue, and you're still thinking it through because you think it's dynamic.
I'm from the Niger Delta. Do you know that?
I know.
Yeah, so I could have qualified as a militant. so I understand the problems. Because part of what we should understand here is that problems that are well understood, there's no reason for us to be parading any level of intelligence that the solutions to Niger Delta for a lot of Nigeria, but it's not a thing you can resolve on a TV interview for 2 hours. With regards to those who say be specific. If you want to see specific, ask for manifesto. And we have manifesto online, by the way, or Sowore 2020.
And by the way, some of your manifesto issues seem to be at odds with your personal issues. So page 32 of your manifesto, for example, they talk extensively about carrying people along in order to get things done. But when we listen to you sometimes, we almost feel like you are marching at it alone because you think you alone can do it.
The fact that I'm passionate about how fast Nigeria should have developed doesn't mean that I don't carry people along. I believe in people. I've been on the side of the masses. The injuries I've suffered the most, I've suffered because even when I could have been comfortable, I come back to take on battles with others. So you can't claim that we don't carry people along when we organize some of the biggest.
Okay, we have just about
from time to time.
5 minutes to go. So I want to ask one final question of you and then use the remaining 3 minutes, if you answer it quickly, to allow you to wrap up and sort of give your final message to the electorate. I noticed that when you set up the party AAC in sort of 2018, you started out as chairman. Then you became the presidential candidate and therefore had to step down as chairman. You lost elections and then became chairman again of the party. And you've now stepped down again to run for the elections. How come? Is it that there aren't people qualified enough to chair your party? Because the optics of it look like this is a Sowore party, as opposed to sort of something that encompasses a diversity of people, if you keep moving from chairman to presidential candidate and back again?
I'm glad you asked, and I want to answer you directly. We set up a party in 2018, and we sort of decided in agreement with INEC that we'll have interim leaders until we go to a convention, and the convention of the party was supposed to happen after the 2019 election because we didn't have much time. When the election was over, the party was hijacked.
Yes, you didn't get a chance to enter into all that trouble.
So we couldn't go to convention.
Right.
And I was arrested when we were protesting against and going to court about it. And there was no opportunity to do any election until we won in the Court of Appeal on June 2nd. So when we won, elections were 6 days away. We had to run around the country to set up. That's why I stepped down again. As soon as this election is over, we will go to a proper convention, and I promise I'm not going to contest as party chairman again.
Okay. Literally in 30 seconds, Malam Magashi, a final opportunity to speak to Nigerians, the electorate, and tell them why the duo of you and Mr. Sowore represent the best option for Nigeria.
I will urge Nigerians to read our manifesto. There is something very important that we have not talked, but we don't have a time. Something that is sticking on the knob of the northern part of Nigeria, that is the Almajiri system. We have a very vast, versatile and workable framework for the Almajiri system to work. I assure the northerners that if we get into power, there would not be Almajiri that would be begging. We would separate that aspect of Almajiri, that is studying religious knowledge, and the begging.
Yeah, Mr. Sowore, 30 seconds, your final words to the electorate.
You know, the meaning of Almajiri is somebody who travels to seek knowledge, not somebody who begs. Yes. So he's very clear on that. But Nigerians have seen the difference. I'm glad that I ran in 2019, and I wish you elected me and did not select somebody who didn't win the election to lead you. This time around, we're looking forward to credible, free and fair elections, and we hope, having heard from us, those of you who are undecided, that you know who the right person is to lead this country to liberty. We want to put liberty on the ballot.
Mr. Omoyele Sowore and Malam Magashi, thank you so much for joining us. And that's it for the candidates for today. Tomorrow